We won't bite your head off, I promise.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Steve Bradshaw. I live at Old Glenelg at Maules Creek, right in the centre of the Maules Creek Valley, and my property is right next door to a proposed solar farm on the properties Middle Creek and Roslyn. This farm is to be 300 hectares in size and will be 250 large solar panels. It is next to the property East Lynn, which is just below the National Park, the Capitan National Park, and through East Lynn runs the large power line that goes from Narrabri across to Tamworth, where the solar farm will connect to the power line. I've been involved now since 2022 in some discussions, three actually, with the proponents, a representative of the proponents of the solar farm. The developer is I won't pronounce the full name, but they go by the name of FRV, and they're owned by an international company from Saudi Arabia and the Canadian superannuation funds. I was only one of three people going back to 2022 who received any communication in relation to this proposal. There are 7 neighbours to these properties, and there was only myself and 2 others that received any sort of communication, because I guess we are the most affected. In my case, being downstream, I'm very affected. So earlier this year, there was some pamphlets set out through the community for a drop-in session, it was called, that happened at the end of May this year. There were approximately 30 community members who turned up to that drop-in session, and I think it'd be fair to say that the proponents thought the drop-in session would be a meet and greet community affair. It wasn't. The 30 people there became very angry. They became very concerned with the information that they were hearing. We were originally told it would be 170,000 panels. We were then told it would be 250,000 panels. It was then that I learnt that there was in fact a scoping report, and I had not, look, to be quite honest, I had no knowledge of scoping reports, but the only document that we're able to find out that there is this scoping report, and the scoping report talks about community consultation, and it talks about a group that the proponents were or had consulted with called the Maules Creek Community Council. Some of you may be familiar with that group, but I can tell you that I chaired the public meeting in about 2008 that commenced that group. I later resigned, and that group in no way represents the majority of residents on Maules Creek. It then talks about proposed community consultation with the CWA and the Maules Creek Bushfire Brigade. I'm the secretary of the Maules Creek Bushfire Brigade. There has been no consultation with the Maules Creek Bushfire Brigade whatsoever. As a result of that meeting, or that drop-in session, the community decided that they would form a group, and that group has become known as the Maules Creek Concerned Residents. And for my sins, I've been elected chairman of that group. That group had a pub.
I'll give you notice, we've got about a minute to go.
A minute to go. Thank you, Mayor. That group had a meeting recently. There were 80 people in approximately 80 people in attendance at that meeting. The local member attended, and there were so many issues that were raised at that meeting. Concerns were not in the RES, the Renewable Energy Zone. I've got tremendous concerns in relation to flood issues when trees and vegetation is cleared from an area near me, floodwaters, I won't get any more water, but I'm going to get it deeper and I'm going to get it faster, similar to a drought situation. And so all of the issues that were raised there to do with fires, flood, 150 vehicles per day on our roads, the devaluation, the possible devaluation, all of these issues are unknown because we know very little about the project. So we know very little at this stage about the issues that are affecting us, but I can assure you that we have sufficient inquiries going and we will be able to become more informed as time goes on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradshaw. Very much appreciate
Thank you.
and certainly
Thank you,
understand your
Councillor.
concerns and appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll now commence the formal proceedings of the ordinary council meeting of the Narrabri Shire Council. Welcome, councillors. Thank you for your attendance and welcome visitors. I'd just like to advise that the council will be recording this meeting today to be webcast and available on the internet. As such, all those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Can I ask that all councillors during the duration of the meeting limit discussions only to the business on the agenda and what is permissible under the adopted Code of Meeting Practice. Can we all stand, please, for the opening prayer? Lord, we pray for thy blessing on this council meeting. Grant that we discuss all matters with understanding and have wisdom in our decisions, that they will be done and through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. Council acknowledges that we meet today on the traditional lands of the Kamilaroi, Gamilaroi and Gomeroi people and recognise their continuing connection to this land and pay my respects to elders past, present, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal people present here today. And finally, Council acknowledges the sacrifice made by Australian servicemen and women, in particular those who gave their lives in the defence of the freedom we enjoy today. Thank you very much, councillors. You may be seated. Can I just remind councillors of their obligation to declare their interest in any matters listed before them. In considering your interest, you are reminded to include pecuniary, significant non-pecuniary and non-significant non-pecuniary conflicts of interest, as well as any other interests you perceive or may be perceived of you. Councillors may declare an interest at the commencement of the meeting, or alternatively at any time during the meeting should any issue progress or arise that would warrant a declaration. Councillors must state their reasons in declaring any type of interest. Just on that, we've got attendance by audio visual. We've got no applications for that today. Apologies and granting of leave. We've got 2 applications for leave. One is from Councillor Redding and the other one is from Councillor Clements. Councillor Clements' reason for his application for leave is for work purposes. And the Councillor Redding has been struck down by an illness. So can I have a mover for both those? Councillor Richardson, Councillor Dickinson, thank you very much. All those in favour of granting that leave? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Any declarations or requirements today? No worries, thank you very much. Items to be considered in confidential. We'll go through that towards the end of this meeting, but we'll go through those reasons and we'll have a vote on whether or not we go into confidential. Presentations, no presentations today. Number 9, we've got confirmation of minutes. We've got 2 lots of minutes to consider, councillors. We can consider them together if you wish, or we can discuss them separately. Is there any desire to separate them out, or would we like to just consider them separately? So we'll move them together. Do I have a mover on both sets of minutes, please? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Dickinson. Is there any discussions for or against accepting those minutes? Any comments, concerns, etc.? I put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Matters of great urgency. We have no matters of great urgency that have been presented to us. Questions with notice also. There's been no questions with notice. We now move on to...
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Can I just ask the question? After the gentleman gave that presentation, it seems
Yes.
really empty that there was no discussion after he
Yes.
was very passionate about the
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
And I know that you and Roy Butler were at that meeting.
Very keen,
that
yeah.
you mentioned.
Yep.
Where does that go when the community got? I think it's fantastic they've come to
Yep.
council,
Absolutely.
but it just seems empty.
Yeah.
So what happens? Is that something we talk to the directors through the general manager when we get to development applications, or there's nothing before council at the moment, is there? How do we discuss that?
Yes. Good.
Raise
It's
some
an
very valid
excellent
issues
question.
about
It's an excellent question.
What the hell's going on, you know?
I'll put that through the general manager.
Through the chair, and I'm sure the director will correct me if I missed something here, but I think the appropriate point to acknowledge is this is a state-led process, but importantly, this council will have the opportunity to discuss it post-elections in a workshop environment in terms of what council wishes to submit to any process that is led by that state-run group. Is that the right way to describe it, Director?
Thanks, Mr. General Manager. That's correct. It is a state significant development. The EIS to that development is being prepared at the moment, so staff don't have a view in terms of the project generally or the appropriateness of that project for the subject site. The General Manager is correct. We will review the documentation once it becomes available. Council is a stakeholder, just like the community in this process, albeit an important one, and a workshop forum would be certainly most appropriate to help formulate that organisational submission.
Thank you very much. Excellent question. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boehm, is this on the agenda?
Mayor, can I suggest then there is a paper in the agenda today that discusses land use broadly, RU1 land use in particular. Would that be appropriate to add that to the agenda for discussion of that particular discussion on that report?
Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't know if it would be appropriate to amend that suggested recommendation at this point in time. However, it's to acknowledge it to be presented on public exhibition, and I think subsequent to that public exhibition period and a workshop, that would be the right time for councillors to decide whether that document should be amended or not.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, everyone. So we've got mayoral minutes. It's been a fair few things when I look through it. A number of these appointments. We obviously we had a presentation for the community financial assistance grants. That was it was very pleasing. I had the local federal member call in to say hello. That was just simply a meet and greet, and he was calling in on most of the councils around his area. Also had obviously a sale yard advisory committee meeting. It was actually, it's just been quite a busy meeting, quite a busy month. But any kind of comments or any questions I've got from anyone? Councillor Boehm.
Yeah, it was in relation to the abattoir. No, not the abattoir.
The abattoir.
The livestock facility.
Yes.
And your attendance in that. Could you provide some further detail about what the competitive and whether the discussions about the competitive arrangements now with Gunnedah in particular expansion, and what the trajectory looks like for Narrabri?
Thank you very much. Yep, I get that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. As anyone that has had a conversation with me over the last few years, it's certainly no, I'd be dead against the sale yard being closed down in any way. But The three main cattle stock and station agents in Narrabri have obviously come to us and basically expressed that they don't need the use of those yards for formal sales. There are no sales that they have scheduled into the future, and that's largely because Moree no longer has functioning cattle yards, and everything that the Moree Council has tried to do to get those yards back up and running or get them up to spec has been unsuccessful. So the Moree yards are very unlikely to ever start again. And because the buyers actually schedule their buying, it was worth it for them to come up to Narrabri and Moree together. Another factor that has really taken place is that because of the drought, since the drought, the number of people that have converted their grazing country to farming country has gone through the roof. So there's been a lot of people that no longer have, cattle, the cattle levels and the cattle sales, and they were getting a small handful of stock through those sales every month, and the agents were basically just saying it's simply not worth it for them anymore. Now, I declare my interest. I've got cattle, and I sold some cattle last week, and it costs a lot more to send them to, say, Tamworth or Gunnedah, and it's a real shame that we don't have those yards operational, but things move the way they move, and we had that meeting last a couple of would have been 2-3 weeks ago, and it was made abundantly clear that these agents just simply don't want these sale yards to be maintained as sale yards. We obviously charge them a fee for the throughput of any of the cattle or the use of any of the yards. We keep them up to national standards, national specs. That costs a fortune for the council to have to bear that. And, every meeting we've had, I can safely say myself and Ted and others have said, are you sure you're never going to have any sales here? And they are absolutely certain it's not going to ever happen again. And I think that is a real shame but we've seen that, whether it be, town dairies or abattoirs or a number of these things. And I think it's a real shame, and that the level of stock numbers they're just not there anymore in this area. There has been talk about us maintaining a certain number of yards for quarantine purposes, for national and state quarantine issues. We're an important animal holding pen for animals, any kind of quarantine issues or disease, etc., that occurs. But having said this, it's another one of those cost shifting exercises. Why would we maintain those yards to natural specs costing our ratepayers tens, if not hundreds of thousands a year, when the federal and state governments are the only ones who really benefit from that? So this is it's an interesting question that you raise, and it's obviously I've got my own feeling about that as well, as would most of the graziers around this area, but it's a real shame.
Just add one more thing.
Sure.
I've been advised from Moree that a decision was made back in May, a formal decision to sell their sale yard, so they're actually going to be sold. And there's been a tender for that sale.
It's been going on for a long time. We've been following that, and we've been tracking that directly with Moree as well. And there's been very little movement on that. It's and unfortunately the sale yards that they've got are just, whilst we maintained our sale yards over many years, particularly around work health and safety, we've had to keep those up to spec. Unfortunately, not every other sale yard has done the same. So it's a real shame. Thank you.
The entire region is really uncovered for sale yards. So it's incumbent, I think, on not this council but the next one to have a very serious.
And we are, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and I think that I share your opinion, but it's it gets down to the realities of the marketplace, unfortunately. So, any other comments or questions, concerns about the mayoral minutes, diaries? That being the case, I will move the minutes. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We now move to the the delegates' report for, this is item 13.1, which is the 2024 NGA communique. That council note the delegate report on the NGA conference held in Canberra on the 2nd to the 4th of July. Can I just say, just as a little note, because I am the author of this, I was enormously proud of this council. This council really, this council really made a big splash at this conference. We were noticed. We outdid the big councils in Sydney and Adelaide and Perth and Darwin in terms of the number of quality motions we got up. All of our motions were approved, and a real feather in the cap for our Director of Planning and Donna Osling and her team, who just did an amazing job on that. Put in, sleepless nights into getting these motions up. So our council has really made a splash during this last conference, and I'm enormously proud. I'm sure you are as councillors. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wanting to suggest an amendment to the motion, which really relates to your additional comments.
Yep.
As an attendee of the event, it was absolutely certain that Narrabri punched well above our weight, and I really think that a commendation of the council staff in particular to pay attention to the opportunity.
Yep.
This is an opportunity that was recognised from the previous one,
Okay.
that we were undercooked. This time, I think it really has shifted.
Do you want to move that motion? It doesn't need to be moved as an amendment if you move the motion.
If I can move an amendment as number 2, that
You're not moving an amendment. You're moving the substantive motion
big pardon,
with a number. You're moving the actual motion, eh?
moving the actual motion.
And you'd like to
with
just
the
make a tweak.
amended-
Yes. Okay.
with the
Yep.
amended part.
Excellent.
That's-
Thank you. Yep.
If you're
Do I
comfortable.
have a seconder on that motion? Anyone? Yeah. What's the amendment?
We deal with the amendment first.
Yeah. What's the
Is that
additional?
correct? That the
Yep.
general manager and staff be commended for their diligence in having 7 motions,
Yep.
successful motions passed at the NGA 24 conference.
Yep.
So it's really
That's good.
the general manager and staff, council commend
The general manager and the
staff
director
and staff for their diligence in having 7 successful motions. And note that this has had a very significant impact on the reputation of the Shire nationally.
Thank you very much for that. And note that this has.
Presenting 7 successful motions and having them passed at the and this success.
Thank you. No worries. Do I have a seconder on that motion? Thank you. Councillor Dixon. Is that?
Mr Mayor, I just had a question. Did you actually, the staff composed the motions and council endorsed them, did you actually present them, did you? or was that?
I was hoping to, because there was a couple of them where I was hoping that there would be, but if there was no opposition to the motion, they just went straight through. So I was primed. There was another mayor who's become quite a good friend of mine down on the south coast, and he was ready to get up and, support us. But unfortunately, everyone loved them, so it was good. Yeah, this went. Yeah. But it's a real credit to, thank you. Are you happy with that motion, councillor? Is there any discussions for or against this motion? Would you like to discuss anything like that, or do you want to just?
Well, I can just wanting to add that these forums are particularly important where we have it really does. It's an important forum and an important event for councillors, current and future, to get involved in, and it does provide a really clear guidance as to what local government's actually doing nationally, and I think that context really does help us. And I think it's a very good it has been a very good return on investment over the time in this council, and we should encourage future engagement of councillors in this forum.
Thank you very much, councillor. Any other comments for or against? I'll put it to the floor. All those against? All those in favour? All those against? Just tricking you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Section 14, we move straight on to 15, which are General Manager's reports. Item 15.1, which is the resolutions register for July 24. The Council receives and notes the outstanding and also the completed resolution register for July 2024. Any comments from the floor? Any questions? Do I have a mover on that motion? Councillor Richardson, seconder. Councillor Bowen, was that you seconding it? Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. I've just got two questions, if the appropriate directors could give some updates. One being the Boggabri Doctor's House. If we have any updates on that, where is it going for the community to know? And also the Boggabri Community Hall/Library project. I do note that we are expecting to see some designs to come back to community. If we can have an update when where we're up to with that, when the community can expect to actually have some more consultation in these projects.
Thank you, councillor. Through the GM. In relation to the Doctor's House in Boggabri, we are currently in motion to establish what we're going to actually do at the site, because as you would be aware from previous discussions, previous meetings, costs have escalated somewhat dramatically since the initial resolution was taken. So we're trying to figure out how best to finance that from a council perspective. And in the coming months, we'll present another report back to council to let council know where we're at with that. In relation to the Boggabri Civic Centre, I believe that the architects were on site the other week discussing with staff. They've marked some potential planning items out. I don't have a time frame for when it'll be back to consultation, but it is progressing, and there's no impediment to any of the timings that we've been aware of yet.
Thank you for that. When we do get a time frame of when that community consultation will roughly be, the community is very, very interested. There's not a week that goes by where I get asked, where's it up to, where's the drafts, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments for or against? Councillor Bowl?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you and the General Manager, just inquiring about the planning proposal to amend the Narrabri LEP in relation to Caroline Way. I know that this is always a very drawn-out process, but points 3 and 4, I note that you're waiting for the determination before there is community consultation And I was just wondering whether this is a bit of a cart in front of the horse, because we're looking at changing the retail environment for the town by having a retail zoning created. So I'm just wondering if the General Manager could update us as to what process would be undertaken to get community engaged in this quite significant shift, and you know, and how will that impact then on the process of the planning application?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through the General Manager, just to clarify, councillors, there is a gateway process with these types of applications for amendment to the local environmental plan that's embedded in the legislation known as the Environmental Planning Assessment Act. The gateway determinations necessary from the department to essentially proceed past go in terms of organising any sort of further community engagement. We anticipate that once we hear back from the department whether the gateway determination is successful, that it will be placed on public exhibition, but a report will come back to council before that step.
Thank you very much. Any other comments for or against? Would you like to speak to your motion? Close out. I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. Thank you, councillors. We move on to item 16.1, which is investment report for June 2024. Recommendation here is that we receive and note the investment report for June 2024. Do I have a mover on that motion? A mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Dickinson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion in any respect? Thank you. Any other comments for or against? I put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to item 16.2, which is proposed discount for Learn to Swim pool entry when undertaking formal Learn to Swim classes. I'll first just put it to the General Manager just to give us just a bit of a top line on what the rationale is here.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is as a result of the community consultation exercise that we engaged in the lead up to the operational plan sign-off for this year. And the item was discussed on the fringes of that meeting in terms of how we could respond to that on the basis that we were required to sign off our operational plan at that meeting, and it was decided that we would put a paper to this meeting to recommend a course of action for councillors to consider in response to the appeal from the Learn to Swim instructors in particular, and also a substantial petition that was presented to council with regards to children's Learn to Swim. So this item is in response to that community consultation. It demonstrates that this council had a desire to listen and to respond where possible, and this paper is for your discussion at this meeting in terms of whether you wish to pursue this or not.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Campbell moved the motion, second the motion. That was Councillor Bohm had it. Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would. It's great that we're dealing with this. It was sort of, as the General Manager said, left on the peripheries of that last meeting, but we spoke of it. I moved the motion with the thought of possibly changing the recommendation in that we're saying here that we'll get a 50% discount on admission fees for children into the pool. Does that equate to from $2 to $1 admission fees? Generally it's a $2
I'll just
admission fee.
through the General Manager to the Director. Current admission fee?
So the current admission fee for single entry for children is $4. So it'll be from $4 down to $2.
Thank you.
The discussion more than around the admission fees for children and that sort of thing, it's all to do with cost of living, obviously, but It was more to do with the lane hire charges in those discussions, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the premise largely of those learn to swim teachers who had issue with it because they couldn't put the cost burden of that back onto the learn to swim kids. So are we going another angle because it's easier on this? I'm just asking the question. Or should we be looking at subsidising the lane hire fees rather than subsidising from $4 to $2? I'd just like to hear a little bit of discussion on that.
Yeah, no worries.
And,
Thank you,
and
councillor.
people's thoughts.
I'll
And
to the general-
with that reference of potentially changing the recommendation to that.
righto,
I'm
which is
following the
your
right process
which is your
here.
prerogative. No worries.
Through the chair, I understand the question, or I understand the discussion point, which is very valid. The reason the staff have approached it from this perspective is that, particularly during the presentation with the Learn to Swim instructors, it was about the children not paying more than they should for their activity of learning to swim. From the staff perspective, we decided to pursue this course of action because it would reduce the cost directly to those children that were undertaking swim lessons, and therefore an alternative way of achieving the goal of those Learn to Swim instructors that gave that presentation. But ultimately, coming back to the principle that subsidising private business is a very difficult space for councillors to get into. And my recommendation at this point in time is that if you actually start to directly support private business, it opens doors that may not be doors that you want to open in the future from many different perspectives.
I get that, General, through the Mayor, I get that, Mr. General Manager, but I think this is a different set of circumstances in that the council fees on lane hire that were increased, and maybe the Director through the Mayor and General Manager might be able to tell me the increased prices on those lane hire fees.
Yes, just grab your seat for a second, councillor. Through the General Manager to the Director, we'll just. Yes, just to the Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one point is that if the council does elect to change the discount to being for the Learn to Swim instructors, it's something that would have to go to public exhibition under Section 356 because it's financial support for an entity or person undertaking a profit or a private gain business. Section 356 requires that goes through 28 days of public exhibition. So it's just something to remember if the council goes down that path.
It will achieve the same thing. Yep, yeah, you can.
If that's all right. Yeah, I get that, and but I think the whole premise of their conversations right from the start and their applications to was put on public exhibition was all about the charges in lane hire fees, and I don't know if the halving the children's admission fees from $4 to $2 is going to help the circumstances that we were talking about, but that's ultimately a council decision. I'm not going to preempt necessarily to go down that pathway without hearing from the other councillors.
At the moment, we are debating the substantive motion, which is exactly the way it appears and has appeared in the agenda. Councillor Richardson. Councillor, could you turn off your mic? Sorry, Councillor Campbell. Thank you.
I'm in support if there was an amendment to this to include lane hire. The emails and correspondence I got was specific to lane hire. So yes, I acknowledge that entrance on a 50% discount would be great. I've just done some figures with a $10,000 figure that allows 5,000 places, which if it's a 12-week course, going once a week, that's 416.6 children that we can help. One of the biggest things that I took out of the emails was the lane hire as well, the same as Councillor Campbell. I'm okay with putting it on public exhibition for 28 days to include both lane hire and a 50% discount. So the cost of living, we can keep our swim instructors and we can keep our kids being able to afford families to learn to swim. It is a life-saving skill.
Absolutely.
We can have a presentation if that's what the community wants as well, in regards to if it's a private entity having this discount. You know, it could be in a confidential meeting about the finances of Learn to Swim, what it actually costs them. I think it wasn't it. I can't remember the exact percentage it rose by, but it was one of our highest percentage in that budget. And I also would like to see that in our motion, it does refer to all three, not just Narrabri. So I would like the words Narrabri, Wheelwall, Boggabri in there as well. All, yes,
All
or
swimming
Wheelwall.
centres, yeah, yeah.
So again, it's up to us as a council as a whole. I think this is something that if we do put on public exhibition for 28 days, those ratepayers who are ultimately doing the cost of this get to decide. Families who will use it, families who won't use it, get their submissions and let's see what our community wants. Because the feedback I got was lane hire is costing the swim instructors too much to be able to perform those duties so the kids can attend. We don't have a swimming instructor, we don't have kids learning to swim.
Yep.
Life-saving skill, we're on flood country, dams, creeks, rivers, swimming pools. We need this service in all of our towns and villages.
Thank you, Councillor. I just give it to the General Manager just for a brief comment.
Through the chair, I'm just questioning whether we have time to resolve this with this council, bearing in mind a 28-day exhibition period. Would that still be something that could be resolved within the caretaker period? Yep, okay, that's good. Okay, so that deals with that particular issue. The second issue is I just want to bring council's attention back to the tenure for the whole operational plan, which was to recover funds and to maintain community subsidy at the pools, bearing in mind the extreme cost increases that we've experienced in recent years to around an 88%, 88, 82? 82 was on my mind. The mayor suggests it was 88. So it's about an 82 or 88. Sorry, I can't be more definite than that without the figures in front of me. A bit of warning may have helped. But we have a significant community subsidy for activities at the pool. So the suggestion that the swim instructors and the children are not already being significantly supported by the overall community, that needs to be in the back of the mind. Because as we go into our next community strategic plan, and again, I don't want to be concerning because I don't mean it this way, but we will have to have significant discussions about the level of support that this community provides in subsidies to our facilities, because we will have to find significant scale backs or cost reductions in the way we do things. This was the first attempt in this operational plan to have that discussion with councillors that understand the scenario, that understand the environment, to test where we go when service level reductions or increased charges are imposed. And I'm sensing a nervousness in terms of trying to maintain the current subsidy that the community provides into community facilities, let alone reduce it. So I'm only saying that because I'm heralding a future with a new council. However, you are at liberty to make whatever decisions you wish to make, and I'm not trying to put you off. I'm just trying to ask for some serious consideration of what we're trying to do here.
Councillor Richardson.
May I just respond to that answer
Sure.
to my question?
Yep.
I still note on item 1 that any funding wouldn't come out of, I'm going to say an operational budget per se, it would come out of our community grants budget. So it's not going to be an additional cost to council. What it will end up doing is lowering our yearly community grants budget, which is, I do think this is a community need, but there's 9 councillors.
And through the chair, I just want to remind the elected members that during this term, that community grants budget has increased from $50,000 to $130,000. So it has been significantly increased and will need further scrutiny during the next community strategic plan.
Councillor Bold.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually support the recommendation on a number of bases. Firstly is that this is, entry fees is the part that we as a council actually control, whereas subsidy of lane hire has the unfortunate opportunity for operators in the system to actually increase the cost of their operations on the basis that there's now funding available. So I think the most effective and most direct way to support children is for us as a council to actually directly support their entry, and the business of operating a swim class is really up to the owners and operators of those swim classes. So, you know, the most effective and most direct system that we can have is to directly support their entry. And bearing in mind that the community fund was increased from up to 130,000 on the basis that we were woefully under supporting community, and there's been some tremendously good initiatives now being supported over this current period. So I wouldn't like to see the community supporting an enterprise within that community fund. I think it's been we've consistently been quite attentive when there's been applications for funding in the community fund that we don't support business activities, and whereas the recommendation I think has been properly put, that we're not supporting those business activities, we're directly supporting the children who are part of our direct community. So the business of operating a swim class is up to the people who do that. The business of supporting children is our business, because we drive the gate, and we can charge whatever it is we want, and we can then we can transparently identify to the community that there is a $10,000 subsidy for swim classes, and I think that that's the most effective and most appropriate way for us to use our budget.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I was actually I was in the big metro, Big Smoke over the weekend, and I attended my nephew and niece's aquatic centre, and they had swimming lessons, and they were given free entry. Actually, the parents were given free entry too. I just wonder whether we need to massage this a little bit, try and come to a point where it's fair on everyone, whether it has to be subsidising the swimming teachers, where we're at with this. We'll have to come to some kind of consensus, councillors. I'm hearing lots of different viewpoints. Whether I meet the teachers halfway, I don't. Councillor.
Mr. Mayor,
Lamont.
just a couple of comments before I form my opinion. There's two arguments here. The recommendation as it is, or the lane hire situation, which appears to be something that may, if we don't do something with it, we mightn't have any teachers of learn to swim. That's one critical issue. And I don't know the extent of that. I think the answer could be, if we did go down the path of ascertaining whether or not the lane hire avenue is the one to go. And if we do, we've got to go out on exhibition. You've got 28 days. You've got your next meeting in August. You've got your swimming pool opens generally after the long weekend in October. I think we need to test the water out there and then have a comprehensive report that's got all options in it, all costings, and then council's in a position to make a decision the way they go, either for the children on the subsidy or with the business aspect. And that to me would be a better way for council to have a decision based upon a report with all issues in it. You know, even this report didn't have down what the community grant is. The general manager says we've got 130,000 there now. That's a huge increase, and we as elected people get put into situations with lobbyists and wanting us to look after this group and that group, and really that's what it's about. We represent the community, and they want some assistance. And if we don't give them the assistance, you don't have the groups, you don't have the activities. So it's a real tricky one. But we must follow the law if we're going to make a decision on the lane issue, and I think if we did that as on the basis, however we word that, we're considering two options, and we want your input on the lane issue as well as the children.
So here you're almost maybe suggesting maybe we add a third part to that, which is around considering a proper review of yeah. Yeah, no worries. The general manager has made a suggestion that if Ron is happy, that we let Councillor Campbell, if Councillor Campbell is so willing, if we could leave the motion for this council meeting, and the staff and the general manager will undertake a full review and give us a full issues paper one way or the other, if you're happy with that.
Through the chair, what I would suggest is that we undertake a consultation exercise with regards to the feedback that we've received thus far, wanting further clarity from the community in terms of what they would support, and then we bring a paper back to the August meeting for consideration.
Time if you've got to go out on exhibition for 28 days with the fees and charges come back in October.
Mr. General Manager. Yeah.
Would be
Through you,
October.
Mr. Mayor, wouldn't we get a similar result if we were to put it out on 28 days exhibitions, 28 days exhibition to see what the community wants and put those options out there for comment, and then anyway, well, I'll talk to it in my closing comments if we're ready for that.
We need to be very certain as to what we're actually, what you're actually moving, Ron. Councillor Campbell, are you moving an amendment to this?
Listen, I'd like to put it through council. I'd like to run it by council to move an amendment to, but I need to give more discussion on this too, in that I don't see the lane hire subsidies as supporting the businesses, more so supporting the children who are affected by the charges from the businesses. So that's, you know, these businesses will have to increase the charges substantially for the learn to swim classes to support the lane hire fees. So if we as a council we subsidise those lane hire fees, so we keep them at the current levels that they're at the moment. We don't increase them to what we've voted to increase them to. If we keep them at the same, the discount of 50% for entry, I mean, if you've got 4 kids going into the aquatic centre, that's, you know, can be potentially a reasonable amount of money. If you've got 1 kid going, it's not much at all. I think the cost, the effect on the students will be more reflected in leaving the lane hire fees as they are, rather than giving us a $2 discount on our entry fee. Without remembering or recalling the rise in the lane hire fees, I'm a little bit
To the director, thank you very much, Councillor.
but more to that, if we were to go down that pathway of the lane hire, and we'll put it on public exhibition, people can then make comment on that, and that's where we'll get those comments as the General Manager spoke of. And we'll get it in this term, and we'll get it before summer.
Thank you,
There's
Councillor.
something else I wanted to say, I've just forgotten it. But
No worries. Councillor, I'll just, through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the General Manager. For Councillor's information, the 50-metre pool increase was proposed to be $28.50 from $22.50, so that's around about 26%.
So that's for the whole lane?
It's for the whole lane.
Yep.
The 25-metre pool is from
Sorry, for how long? For what period of time? 1 hour or something?
I believe.
I assume.
Can't quite see that there at the moment. I believe it might be for an hour.
Yep.
I would assume that that's going to be. It's really bad to assume, but I believe that it is for an hour. And similar prices, $35.50 from $28.50. We did note, however, when the analysis was done, that the lane hire didn't increase between 2019-20 and 2021-22 as a result of COVID. There were modest increases in 22-23 and then again in 23-24. So realistically, we're playing catch up on what the costs are to the organisation and to the community for the pool.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
with the community grants funding that we have, through you, Mr Mayor, and I'm sorry to take up everyone's time in this.
Yeah,
but with the community grants funding that we have available around about the $130,000 mark, we often fall short of spending that money with regard to applications.
No, we don't.
Don't we?
No.
Okay.
Overspend. Heavily overspend.
Well, I'll withdraw that, but
Thank you.
there is, well, I'll put it this way, there is often money, available within that source, or could be made available within that source. That's the little bit I sort of forgotten, and I was incorrect as I spoke anyway.
No worries.
Just a matter of information. One of the things, again, I'm transitioning from New Zealand, but one of the things I'm used to in New Zealand is that we would have private sector corporates providing sponsorship for children's learn to swim, which is also a useful dynamic. And I think of the likes of Whitehaven that give significant community grants out, whether they would consider providing sponsorship to the businesses on the basis of assisting with learn to swim classes as a sponsorship opportunity. That may be another opportunity to pursue, bearing in mind that council, like I said before, is going to have some serious financial discussions going into the next community strategic plan.
I think Councillor Bowen was first. Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, just a question related to did we not pass last meeting that these fees and charges are now set?
We did.
And so,
We did.
given that then, a resolution that does another thing entirely, is that not counter to that, if the General Manager could provide some
Hence the
guidance?
public exhibition if we...
Through
go
the
this
chair,
route.
if we change the fees and charges for those private sector operators, then yes, we would have to go out for public exhibition. If we change by resolution our own fees, then that is obviously something that we can do without public exhibition.
Councillor Richardson.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak twice on this matter. There has been a lot of debate in this room. Hearing your comments about going to your nieces and nephews and the Learn to Swim kids actually pay $0 entry, that is something that would help Do we have statistics on this motion? How many kids in our shire participate in the Learn to Swim? None?
Excellent question.
That may have been useful for us to make this decision. I'm intrigued because I'm under the impression a Learn to Swim class, you pay the child, the adult, subsequent siblings who have to sit there as well. So you're looking at $20 for a family to enter for one kid to learn to swim. So I actually do, I'm not sure if other councillors would like to go into committee of the whole, but I actually like the idea of a $0 entry fee. And again, that $10,000 can be adjusted throughout the next council term out of that community grants budget. If they reach allocation in 6 months, well, what a wonderful thing. We've directly helped those families. We can't control the Learn to Swim instructors' fees. So yes, at the start I was for lane hire subsidy, but it's being brought up, if we subsidise that lane hire, we still can't guarantee that that swim instructor can keep their fees low, because obviously workers' comp, everything like that comes into it. But what we can do is a $0 entry fee for the direct participant and guardian for Learn to Swim classes. I'm not sure if there's an appetite in this room for that. And then the next council committee can debate the $10,000 from the community grants budget if it needs to be reassessed.
I've been very loose with this agenda, with this particular motion, just simply because it's an important discussion that we're having, but we're going to have to get back into a bit of order and actually debate a motion in a minute. So, last comment about this. Thank you very much, Councillor.
I like what Councillor Richardson is saying.
Yep.
Because it's easy for the General Manager to bring a report back for the next meeting we go bang.
Yep.
And based upon that, if we get the information about how many attendees were there the last couple of sessions, how many are the contractors anticipating, and the sponsorship, I like that idea as well, whether or not the General Manager could approach one of the big operators around here, whether or not they could throw 10 or 20 in. But that would mean we'd have to allocate, let's say 20 grand out of the community funds, unless it was subsidised. But I'm sure the General Manager, Mr Mayor, could come back with the CFO, come back with some options. But I'm supporting any amendment to go this way on a zero cost to the child and even the parents for that matter.
And really having an understanding of what the revenue effects are, I think it's sound. Are you happy for us to take this off the table, come back with a business case or more of the numbers around this and what the effects are, whether it be zero, whether it be $2, whether it be, whatever it is, for next meeting? Would you be happy with that, Mr. General Manager?
Sorry, just one issue. We did know now. Sorry, the calculation was based on a number of entries rather than a number of students. So that's where the $10,000 came from. So we based it on 5,000 entries for Learn to Swim lessons. So if we take that fee to be a 100% subsidy, that would take it to $20,000. However, if we were to include parents that are accompanying those children, then that would take that probably to $40,000 that you would be subsidising further. So again, the recommendation that the Mayor just indicated is let the paper lie for now, do not make a decision but withdraw it, and we'll bring a paper back to the next council meeting with figures to clarify where these costs will go to if certain decisions are made, and I think that gives everybody a fair opportunity to make a call.
So we'll pull that item off. We don't need to vote on that. The General Manager's decided to pull that off and we will, okay, no worries. So we will go through a thorough examination of that in the next month. So thank you very much, councillors. So that was an interesting debate. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 17.1, which is the 2024 New South Wales Local Roads Congress, which Councillor Dickinson attended. The recommendation here is that council receive and report and note the report on that Congress. I assume, Councillor, you'll be moving this motion. Do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Richardson, thank you very much. Do I have any comments for or against? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. We now move to item 17.2, which is Infrastructure Delivery Status Report, June 2024. Here it's about really about receiving and noting the status report for the month of June, and that we also receive and note the local traffic committee minutes of 24th of Feb 24 and also of 28th of March 2024. I might just through the General Manager pass that to the Director just to kind of just give us a very brief top line if she could.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. The report is as it stands, so it details the different areas within infrastructure delivery and what has happened in the past month and upcoming for the next month, which is basically over, unfortunately, how the council meetings have fallen. I just want to highlight we've done a lot of work in the tender space. We've got 3 tenders coming later on in this meeting. Been an amazing amount of work by the team to try and pull those together before caretaker period. This is obviously the last meeting we can get those tenders endorsed by yourselves until end of October. So that was the big push over the month, and obviously a few different projects have started, being the pathway. And works are continuing pretty well on Woomera Creek, with a seal actually occurring this morning.
Thank you very much, Director. Do I have a mover on that motion? Do I, you want to ask a question, do you?
I do have a question.
Okay,
if I can.
sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to Roma Lane, I noted that was a completed project for June, and I'm wondering if the Director, through you, Mayor, could make some comment about what that future direction there is for Roma Lane, and whether that remediation or that work that was done was simply just a bit of a tickle up, because it seems the discussion that we've already had is that there's significant issues about width of the road and the ingress of irrigation channels and all those sorts of things in that area. So is this?
Thank you.
That's just, yeah.
Yep. Through the General Manager to the Director. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roma Lane, so nothing has changed since the June meeting. So what I detailed in June, we have completed grading as it's detailed in this report alongside the road, and we've committed to completing drainage works along the road. However, that has been delayed, as you know, from the weather. It has not dried out, and that contractor has detailed to us he cannot go there until the conditions allow. So he's still engaged, and we've also got the millings from the Transport for New South Wales project. So that has been stockpiled, and it will be moved when they're finished stockpiling it, and we'll move it on to Roma Lane. Other than that, that's the plan. It hasn't changed since June.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dickinson, do you have a question, or do you want to move the motion? What's the...
About the flood damage program. How's it progressing, and have we got any more funding made available to us on a very slow basis by the looks of it?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you. Yes, so we've actually received, just within the last 2 weeks, they've confirmed for works we've already done. There's about $2 million worth of works we've already done, and that should be coming in the next pay cycle from Transport for New South Wales. So they've approved those works. So it's a little bit different once they've completed. We still have to send all that evidence to Transport, so they go through, say, timesheets, invoices, all of that. So once they're happy with what we've spent and allotted to that, they reimburse us. So we've got $2 million coming back to us within the next month. And the further works which we need, all the packages are with Transport for New South Wales. We haven't got any further approvals. We know they are going through them because I've seen the back and forth emails, so they clarify a lot of information as to, say, with gravel roads, how much gravel we're putting on the road, because they're looking at evidence we've provided them. It's very, very subjective, and there's been a lot of back and forth with that. But as to date, we haven't got any further approvals for works to proceed yet. We are about to get paid for works we've already done previously.
So, sorry, just, so how much money are we still waiting for from Transport for New South Wales, would you say, or the government for flood?
The $2 million for works we've already done gets us nearly back to even. I believe there's one other claim, which I'd have to look up to see how much that is. However, that gets us near back to what we've done. The bigger one of the works we haven't done yet, and it's equating to about $32 million worth of works we need to do. That is not approved by Transport yet. The majority of that is on sealed roads, heavy patching. So not just potholing, it's heavy patching, which you see those strips along the road. So they are giant packages, yet they are not approved by Transport. So that $32 million worth of work is could change.
Okay, thank you very much.
I just have a question, Mr Mayor, through the General Manager to the Director. Where we have a lot of, we've got a level of service with our roads, the level of whether they get graded once a year, twice a year, and some say never. And I'm assuming there's a process in place there, Mr Mayor. Well, what happens where you've got increased activity with quarrying, increased activity with mining? And I know the gentleman, Mr Bradshaw, today spoke about the anticipation of extra traffic and things like that from the solar farm.
Yep.
And we, as a poor, we're a council that's got to really be careful about its dollars because it's got trees and trees are full of money. The level of service is the critical thing. So do we as a council change our level of service at the expense of others and might get one grade a year, they get pushed back to two because we've got really heavy activity down in the mining area, the quarrying area? Is there a process in that?
That's a good question. Through the General Manager to the Director. Thank you.
Hey, yes, we do. So we've actually become quite skilled, if I do say so myself, at this process. We've had a lot of learnings from, say, Whitehaven starting up decades ago, and we're getting much better at this. So when a development comes on board, planning and infrastructure get together and have a look at that. Planning, obviously, from the planning side, but we use that information. So they give us traffic data and expected volumes, and we put certain parameters around the approval that we might give, which is a lot of time based on they give us money to service that road. I'm not saying every agreement we've ever made is perfect, but we're definitely much better at it now than we ever were. So that's something we work towards, is getting money for that increased traffic to get that road to a certain standard. So they might provide us an ongoing amount of money, or they might upgrade that particular road to a higher standard. Say if a quarry was starting up on Road B, they'd have to upgrade Road B to that standard that would cater for that heavier traffic. So that's what we take into account, making it really simple. And we do have standards. However, we are, as you know, we've got an improvement process that's happening at the moment. So we're doing a roads management review. That scoping report will be brought to council very soon. What we really want at the end of that is something really clear, saying, connecting to our hierarchy that says, it's this hierarchy, this is what happens, it gets graded twice, 3 times, whatever it is. And that also then helps us even further with those development applications to make it really clear for the developers when they're coming into Narrabri Shire that if they're coming here and their traffic is this, that's the standard that they will be required to do it. We do that at the moment, but we are improving the process. That answers your question.
Thank you very, very much, Madam Director. Councillor Dickinson, do you have another question, or are you going to?
Yeah, I just want to ask, what do we need to do to hurry up this flood funding? Because this has been going on now for years, and it seems to me as though the quantities are getting whittled down, the amounts of money are getting whittled down to basically nothing. What do we do as a council? Do we go to the minister, to whoever, to try and hurry up these funds? Because our constituents out there can't keep waiting and waiting and waiting for their roads to be fixed up. These problems are becoming these flood problems are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on.
Thank you for your
So
question.
what do we need to do?
Thank you very much. And look, I can guarantee you, having attended a few country mayors meetings recently, just about every council in regional New South Wales is facing exactly the same issues and the same problems as ours. And I'll just give it to the director through the general manager.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Through the General Manager, I just might weigh in and remind councillors that we do have an opportunity to set motions for the upcoming New South Wales Local Government Conference. There's a workshop scheduled in the coming weeks, and that might be a key motion that this council elects to put forward to ensure that we're maintaining that pressure and getting the funds that we so desperately need.
It's a very good point, everyone. Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Dickinson, Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Dickinson? Any other for and against? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's covered off. Thank you very much. We now move to item 17.3, a very important one, I think. The one here is for a 40 kilometre an hour zone in Narrabri CBD along high pedestrian activity area. The recommendation here is that the council endorse the establishment of a high pedestrian activity area in Narrabri CBD as per the zone detailed in the report, for it to be placed on public exhibition for a period of at least 28 days, and during the exhibition period call for and accept submissions, that a report be returned to council following the conclusion of the public exhibition period at the next available ordinary council meeting detailing the results of the public exhibition. Might just I'll hand that to the director through the GM for just a quick update on that one. Just a top line, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As councillor will recall, I brought a report to council about looking into the implementation of the 40 kilometre per hour speed zone within the CBD. So that was endorsed, and since then we've been working with the local traffic committee, which includes the police, which is the main people we need to chat to. So they've reviewed this. Both the police reviewed the area and gave us the okay, and then it went to LTC. And we got the okay from them, so now we're bringing it back to you to see if you like that, and we'll put it onto public exhibition. So it doesn't come into effect until after public exhibition. So we've got to go out to the community and talk to them first. Noting any major infrastructure will be paid for through Transport for New South Wales. However, because of our Maitland Street and the work we've done there, it'll be most likely some line marking or painting on the road there with some signs. A lot of others, if you look them up online, are doing major upgrades with curbs, extensions and stuff like that, but we don't need that currently. The only thing which we may require is a road safety audit, which is beneficial anyway for council, which is in the realm of $14,000, which would be funded within the road's current operational budget.
Thank you very much, Director. Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Richardson, a seconder on the motion, please. Councillor Lamont, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, this is something that's been months, if not 12 months in the process, so happy to go with it, put it on public exhibition, see our community's happy with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments?
Mr Mayor, as a seconder, I was fortunate enough to be over in Paris, France and Spain just before the Olympics, and if you see the Olympics being broadcast and with the Arc de Triomphe there, and that the traffic is just crazy. It's crazy because they're driving from the left, and they're giving way to each other on the right. I never saw one accident. And that was because the speed is so slow. It's around about 10k in the CBD area. So just imagine our friends up the main street here, they're going to hate 10k. I think 40k is a very good compromise, but the priority over there is not on looking after pedestrians. It's making sure there's no accidents. That's an interesting point. Because that's a very costly thing, more than,
Thank you, councillor. Do we have any, do we have any comments, other comments for or against? Councillor Bohm?
Thank you. I guess it's more of a question. I know that I do recall when we would discuss this some while ago, the actual CBD itself was being defined as one street, and if there is some further detail about why just the one street, was this a police issue? Was this about the fact that CBD is only considered in one place? You know, we're now talking about retail out in the boondocks. We've got quite a bit of activity, commercial and services in Maitland Street, in Tiberina Street and also Barwon Street, and also in the Cross Street. So what was it that got us to just to do the one street?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Yeah, so this is what was approved by police and also Traffic New South Wales prior to the LTC, but also during the LTC, that they requested exactly that zone. I can speak for Moree. So Moree had quite a simple one to start with, and then once it had been implemented for some time, they actually extended it out. But that this was the request from New South Wales Police, that it be like it is, especially on either end. They didn't want it going out any further than what it was. I know it says CBD, but it's Maitland Street. I'm not saying that that's only the CBD. The CBD is a much greater space, as what you've indicated. However, this is the first implementation, you could say, and we can go from there.
It's within the CBD, I think, is the, yep. So we've got a mover, we've got a seconder. Do I have any other comments for or against this in any respect? No. Happy to put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thanks, Council. We move on to item 17.4, acceptance of tenders under delegation. The recommendation here is that the Council notes the determination of tenders under delegation for the period to June 2024. Through the General Manager, the Director, do you want to just say a couple of top line things?
Thank you. Yes, so this is the quarterly report. It comes to Council at the end of each quarter. It details the tenders that the GM has signed off on, which are below that threshold of 1.5. So anything above that comes to Council for endorsement. In this period, there was 4, which you can see on the report.
Thank you very much, Director. Do I have any questions of the Director in any respect, or do I have a mover on the motion at all? Councillor Richardson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lamont. Would you like to speak to the motion at all, Councillor?
Yeah, just to give the team credit, having 4 tenders before going into caretaker mode to make sure those works can continue, I think is a good thing. I think it puts the next council in a very positive position that they've got work to continue with, and it proves we've got some shovel-ready projects ready to go as well. So yeah, thank the team, and I just think it's more of a legislation requirement, this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson. Any other comments for or against? That being the case, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to planning and sustainability. The item 18.1, which is planning and development report for May, June 2024. Here it's that we note the planning and development report for May and June 2024 through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through the General Manager. Just our standard report on the metrics for our planning and associated approvals. Of specific interest and note is the statement of expectation orders. To say, as a practitioner with over 30 years experience in planning and a long-term local government employee, this is the type of thing that really frustrates me as a practitioner around the naming and shaming of councils, acknowledging that councils are only one stakeholder and one part of the overall process to get houses and developments on the ground. It's a common diversion tactic I've seen over the years, and there's no mention of current issues with the New South Wales planning portal, current skill shortages, and reducing numbers of skills trades in the sector, which are far more significant contributors to the issues that we have, as opposed to local government planners and allied professionals. But that's my view as a humble town planner, and the report's presented as read.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions of the Director or anyone wanting to move the motion? Councillor Bohm?
Have we moved the motion?
No, we haven't.
So,
Can I ask a
certainly
question of the Director?
through you to the General Manager, Director, I can certainly support your political views and make. I'm entitled to make the political view, so maybe I'll take that on as my support. And I do note that back in the New South Wales conference last year, the planning minister was bugling on there quite, saying that there would be some very significant changes to the portal and its performance. And I take from your comments that probably hasn't occurred, and so maybe if it's possible to foreshadow some of the questions that might, or the motions that might need to be put, these seem to be absolutely fundamental to our capacity to grow as a shire. And if there were some way to continue that discussion, as Councillor Dickinson's already done, about talking about the available funding, we seem to be at the blame end of all of this. So, and I do have one question in that statement of expectations, which I know is fairly real. There are some very significant changes there foreshadowed over the next 2 or 3 years. What capacity do we have as a council, and what are the decisions that would need to be made by the councils in order to facilitate the capacity to deliver on those the state government's issue of expectations of council?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I should have mentioned as part of my earlier comments that this council's outperforming just about every other council in the New England Northwest region. We have an exceptional group of professionals here that are punching above their weight. Would we like more people? Of course we would. We'd like more town planners and more building surveyors, but we have systems and processes in place to manage our impending and current workload. We rely on external contractors on a minimum basis, but as we need to. So I've got a high level of comfort that we'll be able to continue to maintain momentum. I have the staff organising some media around our performance in the planning and development space, and that will be shared with councillors over the coming weeks.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Do I have any other comments? Do I have a mover on this motion? I think Councillor Dickinson won it, and I think Councillor Bond was a very close second. So, Councillor, would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Dickinson?
I'll just quickly, I'd just like to let you know that problem's been fixed. Director, thank you for your report, and thanks to the staff as well, and yet they are doing an amazing job.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments for or against? I'll put it to the floor. All those. Oh, Councillor Richardson, sorry.
Sorry, just to follow up on what Donna and Councillor Dickinson just said.
Which part of what he said?
Well, I'm about to do that.
Right. Okay.
I think it's admirable, and we stand here and when work is good, we actually go thank the teams. Director Osling is leading her team by example. So I think there's a big credit to you, Director Osling, for mentoring your team, getting them to this standard. And yes, we would love more people, but the reality is a shortage still. It's not an easy fix. It's probably a year's, maybe a decade away. But with your leadership, they've been able to accomplish this. And the level of standard that Narrabri Shire is presenting us in is incredible. So thank you, as well as your team.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There being no more comments for or against, we'll put it to the floor. All those in favour, all those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to item 18.2, which is a draft public art strategy. Just speaking to that, I'll just call through the General Manager. I'll just call on the Director just to give us a top line on this strategy.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, this is an identified action within our operational plan. The team's worked very hard on this item with the assistance of our Public Art Advisory Committee, who have endorsed the plan and suggested that it be presented to Council for further consideration. The strategy will facilitate the establishment of public art within the Shire. There's a great deal of momentum in this space, and I'm hoping that Council will consider it favourably and allow us to place it on public exhibition.
Thank you very much, Madam Director. Councillor Bowen, you're going to move the seconded by Councillor Dickinson. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just thinking, the work that's been done is very clearly quite comprehensive. The question I would have is the usual one, I suppose, is how do we fund this sort of activity into the long term? There's some aspirational work there that talks about this in generalities, but in my reading of it, and maybe I didn't quite grasp it as I maybe was intended, but I didn't really see a lot of focus there on, well, how do we fund this, and what are the measures of success then of those investments that would be put into place. So if I can then just make that as, I guess, part of a comment really, is that the next level of that plan should certainly talk a lot about the funding and to make sure that this isn't just a strategy that sits there, it's actually one that's funded.
So would you like the Director just to make a comment, or were you happy to just continue?
I would be happy if there was going to be a comment about that. I mean, I'm certainly quite supportive of the breadth. And, you know, in all dimensions, quite a lot of very good work has gone in there, but it just wondered...
We'll just pause your comment for a moment, and I'll just let the Director, just through the General Manager, just to answer your question. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Excellent question, Councillor Bowen, around funding, because often public art is one of the soft and fluffy, as my colleague likes to refer them, type projects. We do have a very creative group of individuals within Council who have pursued public-private partnerships around co-funding of public art. You'll note item 18.3 of the amendment to the Section 712 contribution plan. Public art has been identified as a potential deliverable through that amended schedule, which gives some capacity to leverage development contributions. We have a framework that allows us to apply for grants through various sources, and of course, if the Council so desires, we can accommodate public art through the annual budgetary process. So those are your four main streams, and they have been covered and actively being pursued.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. And Councillor, you may resume.
If I may continue then, it was that public and the co-contribution from public and other resources, because I know the New South Wales government is dropping support at that regional level. Everything now becomes highly contestable, which I think is just another example of how smaller organisations such as ours, regional, the further we are from the emperor, the less we get, less attention we get. So I think it's pretty important to actually put this into a bit of hyperdrive and really try to drive. If we can't get this from state government, I was really strongly supportive of the whole initiative, but I think we just need to really put a lot of focus on where do the dollars really come from, because in order to support a vibrant arts community, it's got to be really well funded, and I'm certain it can be done. I don't know that we always need to touch up the usual miners to this. There's some very large agricultural and other enterprises out there. I think that they're escaping the opportunity to invest in their community. There's a lot of other opportunities. So I don't know whether this is part of the business development team's work or where it comes from, but there certainly seems to me that a really strong emphasis and push to actually get public-private investment driving this would be the best possible way. And now that we've got the report, I think that we've got some meat on the bones there to really take that forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments for or against this strategy? That being the case, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to item 18.3, which is amendment to section 7.12, contribution plan schedule of works. I'll just, through the General Manager, hand that to the Director just for a top line on that, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As foreshadowed by my previous comments, this is a housekeeping amendment that we undertake frequently to review the efficacy of the schedule. We have conducted some amendments following the completion of a range of works and also included some additional opportunities for project funding such as public art. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Any questions from the floor about this matter at all? Yeah, but I mean, Councillor Bohm.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, there seem to be there are future industries that we haven't talked about, and I guess this will be everyone will probably understand where I'm coming from here. But we had a discussion from a member of the public this morning talking about changed land uses and the opportunities there. It would seem to me and seem incumbent on us to not to always necessarily think that the miners are the only ones where we're going to get dollars from, and these contributions from major projects, particularly in renewable energy, should be something that we take forward with a little bit of ammo there. So, for example, that Maules Creek development of probably $250 to $300 million. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but there's some very significant developments coming, and these are not going to really slow down. And yes, I just wonder whether there's a particular levy that we have for those, and I do note that there's been, certainly in the New England area, there's 2 to 3% seems to be a number that's often put for co-contribution from large renewable energy projects, and I think that then that seems to be a policy that we ought to be potentially thinking about in this. I don't know, maybe the Director could comment on that, Mayor, but I just think that there's another category that we ought to be really focused on.
Thanks. We'll take that as a question through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In answer to your question, Councillor, the development contributions framework in New South Wales is incredibly complex. The report that we're presenting about 7.12 contribution is one stream. The other mechanisms that you're talking about around voluntary planning agreements are another potential stream of funding for councils. I might suggest that we have a future workshop with council, probably the new council, to discuss potential policy framework and bodies of work that will build upon the current work that's being undertaken by the New South Wales State Government with their funding guidelines. So we can certainly put it on our to-do list for the new council.
Thank you very much, Director. Do I have a mover on this motion? I note that Councillor Dickinson has left the chamber. I assume you caught that. Thank you very much. Do I have a mover on this motion? Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bowen again. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor? No. We'll put it to the floor. All those in favour, all those against. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. The next one is item 18.2, Narrabri Chamber of Commerce Business Awards 2024, a complimentary ticket allocation. Because we're moving into a caretaker mode, the president of the chamber has asked, obviously we have a table, but I won't be mayor on that night, and the deputy mayor won't be mayor on that night. We no longer mayor at midnight on the 13th of September. So we seek the council's consent if you wish us to attend there as representing you, for you to approve that. If not, that's fine. But I'll just put that. I'll just ask the general manager. Would you like to make a couple of comments for that at all, or really?
Oh no, through the chair, I think it's a pretty straightforward agenda item.
Yep. Do I have a mover on that motion at all? Any comments or questions or concerns?
I've got a comment.
Yeah.
We've all got a conflict of interest here. We can't make a decision. Think about it.
Yeah, it's a funny old night to have it. I have spoken to the president of the chamber, and he said to me it might be good entertainment to have a blow by blow of the numbers and various other bits and pieces on that particular evening. And I just said, well, might be fun for you, Russell, but not for us. Anyway, Councillor Bowen, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, look, I had exactly the same thought as...
Oh, no, we all do. I mean, do we?
I would take more words to describe it, but I really think we have a conflict of interest in this space, and I really just think that this should be something that senior executives of the council should be invited to attend.
Yes.
But I really don't think political representation, whether you're a mayor or not a mayor at that particular moment, I just don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's a good look, and I'd rather we stay out of that political space in this example. If we're providing funding, that's one thing, but it just doesn't reek. Yeah. It doesn't look good. This doesn't to me. My pub test says I don't think so.
I tend to agree with you, Councillor. I'll be attending anyway through my business, but that's a different thing. But any other comments for or against, or I'm happy to even withdraw this motion.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. General Manager.
Councillor Lamont.
Aren't we a sponsor?
We are a sponsor.
Or
Hence,
should the acting general manager of the day go and represent and take appropriate directive?
That's what he's doing.
Yeah,
he is doing that.
It's an operational matter.
I think he was for ethical reasons seeking the consent of the council for permission for him to invite us to come along, but it's really up to the council. If there's a sense that that's not a good look, then I'm quite happy. Yeah, we might withdraw this motion if that's the case. Everyone, there is no motion. We'll just pull that off the agenda anyway. Thank you very much, council. We move to item 18.5, which is draft Narrabri Rural Land Strategy. The council receive and note the report on the council rural land strategy, that it be placed on public exhibition for 60 days, and that a report be returned to council following the conclusion of the public exhibition period to the very next available council meeting detailing the results of the public exhibition. I might just hand that to the director through the general manager just for a quick update on this, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, through the General Manager. This draft rural land strategy has been prepared in partnership with the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure, and been developed by consultants Rambol with council staff input, acknowledging that this is the first site that this council's getting of the document. And its associated recommendations. Over caretaker period, staff is suggesting an extended exhibition period of 60 days. There is proposal for a workshop at the end with the new elected body prior to their endorsement of the documents. And I'd suggest that if council boards have any specific questions or concerns, I'm happy to take those offline back to the consultants and have those further canvassed as part of a workshop with the new elected body.
Thank you very much, Director. Do I have any comments or questions? Councillor Campbell left the chamber at 15 minutes past 12. Any comments, questions? Councillor Bond.
Question, Mayor, through the General Manager to the Director. I guess it's a very simple question. Did we learn anything here? Because in my reading of it, I can't find anything that is actually a learning. It just seems to be a very large number of words that means absolutely zero. And there's no recommendation that anything would be changed from what we currently do. So the question is, did this report teach us anything? And has it provided any direction that is valuable?
Thank you very much. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I think the strategy has provided some comfort that we're heading in the right direction, and the framework's not broken, I guess, for want of a better word. It has given some illuminating insights in terms of the role of the research and development sector and the need to preserve that sector, for example, through buffer zones and capitalising on some of the potential ancillary benefits of those activities. It has provided some good insights that we need to be able to leverage more off the agricultural sector in the value-adding space, which we did know through the economic development strategy, but it also gives appropriate weight to that. So I think it's an opportunity for us to reflect on what we've learned over the SAP process as well, our recent significant strategic bodies of work for this particular council in the economic development strategy and other, and gives us some comfort that we are heading in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Director. Any other comments or questions? We don't have a mover on this. Does who wishes to move this? Yes.
Well,
Councillor Baum moves this. Do I have a seconder? I think that was you, Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Baum, would you like to speak to your motion?
I would like to speak to the motion, thinking that this is a very underwhelming piece of work. I mean, yes, it's talking about the things that we would expect. It does provide that assurance that rural lands need not be subdivided, and we have been heading in the right direction on that. But there's very little comfort given to what the future world is going to look like. And again, and I keep on saying that in 2035, this area is slated to become a renewable energy zone. So somewhere between now and then, well, it's in that time frame. I'm not going to say 2035 exactly, but it's in the mid-30s. That we would become a potential renewable energy zone, and given the conflict we've already been observing just very recently in terms of renewable energy and the suitability of lands, because Now, this report is very, very narrow, very, very thinly describing land use based on agricultural land values, and they're pretty archaic sort of systems because those do not take account of changes of technology of agriculture. We've already heard that a lot of grazing country has now become farming country, is now considered to be much higher value. There isn't any discussion about those changes of economics. I know it's talking about the change of, talking about the comparative analysis between us and other shires, but that provides really no comfort, I don't really think. Because I'm certainly aware of at least 20 to 100,000 hectares of land that is not highly valued agriculturally that would be suited to both wind and solar in the Shire. And there's no attempt to actually look at the future there. So yes, it's given us assurance, but I think a hell of a lot more work needs to be done, maybe internally to begin with, on land use changes that we could probably see over the next 10 to 15 years, because they're coming, irrespective of what we think now. Those changes are coming, and we need to be well and truly prepared for it in the planning and try to avoid these land use conflicts that we're already seeing. And we need to head that off, I think, by much better instruments and better zoning.
Any other comments for or against this motion?
Mr Mayor, can I ask a
Councillor
question
Lamont.
through you, the General Manager, to the Director? Just following on from Councillor Bowen and my past roles, renewable energy zones, they've started out with half a dozen of them or so, and the current state government's followed on what the previous state government's done, so it's a bipartisan sort of approach. Is what he's saying is absolutely correct. It's going to change our landscape. And what we had were farming communities working closely together. They're now at loggerheads, those for and those against. Then what the Mayor indicated about grazing land and growing stock, there's so many changes going on. Is this flexible enough to deal with that, do you think? Is that a good platform for us? Because I think we need to be in front of the game rather than behind the game. You heard Mr Bradshaw today. The state significant development process and the IPC process does not help local communities. It does not. We know that. You're agreeing with me there, and I know from the past. So we as a council need to be upfront and working with our communities to make sure that they understand that this is around the corner, rather than just saying, oh, it's a state significant development, we've got nothing to do with it, we'll wait for 6 months, we'll make a comment. No, it needs to be more than that. That are you guys aware that we've got wind and out in your, wind's the wrong word, we've got, we've heard that there's going to be a development out there. Because I remember one of the roles I had before, Neon was a French group that came to the council, and the first I knew they were in the area, they were knocking on my door as a GM and wanted to know where the transmission lines were going on government land or council land, so that they could see whether the council was interested in working with them on setting up a renewable energy site, like a wind farm or solar farm. And so I came thinking, oh, it's a good opportunity for council and all that sort of thing. At the end of the day, they ended up going on a private property and paid that private property a nice sum for them to assist energy for the grid, right? Council got 75 grand a year over 25 years. 75 grand a year. And we never had a say. And the communities affected by the traffic and all of those issues, that they come back to council and say, Mr Mayor, what are you doing about this? And that's what Mr Bradshaw was saying today. So that's where the changing environment is, that we as a council should be representing our people at the reses, whether the res is here or not, working with the minister to making sure, well, if you guys are going to make this a renewable energy zone, call it Northwest, not New England, but Northwest and Western Plains, whatever, because wind and solar, whether we like it or not, is a resource. It's a resource. So I'm just supporting what Councillor Bale's been saying, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's an enormous amount of community heat in the. I mean, I went to that Malls Creek meeting, and that was hot. It was white hot. So it's a very good point. Thank you very much. But this will go into consultation. This will, the consultation phase, and then we'll be able to. We're going to have another future workshop at some stage in the next few months, and we'll be able to spend a bit more time on it. So. Do I have any other speakers for or against? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We've got an item here which is 18.6, which is a community advocacy opportunities for July 2024. We've got a number of items here as read. I might just give. I'll just give it to the General Manager. Do you want to make any comments about this at all?
Not really. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward agenda item in terms of recommending resolutions that we put forward to the
Various different bodies.
Yeah.
Legislative Assembly committees. There was a number of submissions made by Council, and it's a lot of work that's being done. So, could I? Do I have a mover on this motion at all? Councillor Richardson? Councillor Bohm? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, there is a lot of information there.
There
I'm
is.
sure councillors and the community will read those, especially that interests them in our community. Happy with all of them. As I said, they're vast, they're wide, and I think they capture us well.
Thank you very much for that. I'll put that to the floor. Would you like to make a comment, Councillor Bohm?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Point number 8 was the radar network, which really relates to the funding of arts and some of those in those areas, and I think it identifies some very significant changes that are on the way in how we look at funding through those regional organisations, and also throughout this whole setup. There seemed to be a lot about competitive. A lot of us moving in much more competitive funding, and it's I think that this is something that we strategically need to really put our minds to in the medium term. Our ability to compete for in all these various submissions identifies that we're just going to become less and less competitive over time, and I don't know how. This council can't do much about it, but the next one certainly could be focused very much on how we try to maintain some competitive advantage in attracting effective funding that drives our community.
That's a good point. I just note that Arts Northwest has had their funding pulled, which is I think it's a deep shame. Anyone that's had anything to do with Arts Northwest over the years will certainly know that there's plenty of money flowing into arts in the regional and metropolitan areas, the big areas, along the coast. But there's very little arts money that comes out here, and it's a real shame. I might put that to the floor, everyone. Do we have a mover on that? I can't see. It's up there a bit somewhere. We had a mover, did we? Any other for or against? Any comments for or against? I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Just one comment. Isn't it funny how we have grants officers, but we need to have people doing submissions officers, don't we?
I know.
The amount of work that's involved in this is unbelievable.
I know,
Which
and
takes the staff away from their core roles.
Absolutely, and we talk about cost shifting, where government basically pushes costs back to us. We have a small army of people that just dealing with bureaucracy. It's very sad indeed. The supplementary item is one that's listed, and the request is here that it goes into confidential. Now, the reason for confidentiality is that it is commercial information of a confidential nature, and then if disclosed, would prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council or reveal a trade secret. That's the reason that has been listed here. Do I have a mover that we move into confidential, move into closed? Councillor Dickinson, seconded by Councillor Richardson. All those in favour? All those against? We're now in closed, everyone.
Resolution 19.1, that in accordance with the tender panel recommendation, Council accepts the tender from Saunders Civil Build Pty Limited for contract 2023 hyphen 24/55 in the total GST inclusive amount of 1,612,393.04. That the General Manager be authorised to sign the contract documents on Council's behalf and that Council maintain the confidentiality of those documents and considerations in respect of that contract. Item 20.1, that Council receive and note the report on the Northern Regional Planning Panel Technical Expert appointment and that Council endorse applicant 1 and applicant 3 as Council's appointed experts on the Northern Regional Planning Portal. Item 20.2, that in accordance with the tender panel recommendation, Council accepts the tender from Derricon Group for contract 2023-24/52 in the total GST inclusive amount of 5,480,890.74. That the Council General Manager be authorised to sign the contract documents on Council's behalf and that Council maintain confidentiality of those documents and considerations in respect of contract 2023-24/52. And item 20.3, that in accordance with the tender panel recommendations, Council accepts the tender from Derricon Group for the contract 2023-24/54 in the total GST inclusive amount of 2,104,886.66. That the General Manager be authorised to sign the contract documents on Council's behalf and that Council maintain confidentiality of those documents and considerations in respect to that contract.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. That concludes the business of Council. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and thank you for your attendance today at Council. Thank you very much. The Council meeting is closed at 12:47. Thank you.